And this a little bit ties into the Harvard story I told you a few weeks ago, and I hope I get time to hit the Harvard story. But Oberlin College, the most amazing story. And again, the theme of the day, you have to fight for what's right. You have to stay in the fight. You have to stand up, because the left in this country, the social justice warriors, the left-wing, power-grabbing, socialist-loving American left is truly on a warpath to silence Americans and to have control of our culture, our society, our conversation, and our courts. In Oberlin College, here's a story before I get to this litigation that came out very favorably against Oberlin College and in favor of a little local bakery. So Oberlin College, I had to look it up. They are in Oberlin, Ohio. It is actually the oldest continuously operating co-ed college in America. Did not know that. Second oldest in the world. So it's been around a long time. But the day after President Trump won the election in November 2016, 3 Oberlin students went to a local business, a business near the campus, frequented often by Oberlin College students. It's called Oberlin. It's called Gibson's Bakery and Market. It's in downtown Oberlin. It has a bakery and baked goods. It also has a market, and they sell various items. So the day after Trump won, 3 students from Oberlin, a guy and 2 women, went into Gibson's Bakery and Market, and the guy attempted to shoplift some wine. He tried to steal some wine and walk out. Whoever was working at the store that day caught him, and in trying to stop him from leaving with his wine, there's a bit of an altercation. The 2 women got involved in the fight, trying to help the guy steal the wine, and ultimately the police came. The guy was stopped, the police came, and all 3 of these students pled guilty to shoplifting, aggravated trespassing, and all of them in the plea deal acknowledged that Gibson's Bakery was not engaged in racial profiling. You see, these 3 students happened to be African American. But in between the plea deal I just told you and the day of this attempted shoplifting, these students went back to Oberlin College, and they engaged in you can't even call it political. They engaged in a monstrous strategy to destroy Gibson's Bakery for having the audacity to hold them accountable for the fact they tried to shoplift wine, to call the police and have them arrested. So these people started at Oberlin College. They went and got one of the student senate, I think it was, to put a statement out all over campus that Gibson's Bakery and Market was guilty of racial discrimination, had a long history of racial profiling, and should be boycotted. And so the student senate, I don't even know what they thought really happened, but these 3 students managed to convince the student senate to go on a rampage against this Gibson's Bakery. By the way, Gibson's Bakery, also a long time. It is now, it's the 4th generation of the family, of the Gibson family. This is a business that has supported the Gibson family since, I think it was like 1885 or something. So there's a grandfather, a father, an adult son, and a grandson. So all these people work at Gibson's. It's been their family's livelihood for generations. So this Gibson's Bakery is now, being maligned by Oberlin. And then they had, so these students, in addition to having the student senate pass a resolution, they engaged in boycotting and marching outside of this Gibson's Bakery, getting college students to show up and march outside carrying signs, boycott Gibson's Bakery, racial profiling, long history of racial profiling, racist, all this absurdity, and all of it stemming from this one incident in which these 3 college students engaged in stealing wine and thought they should just be able to get away with it. So at these protests outside of Gibson's Bakery, they had, in addition to the students who, were plenty of students, there was also a woman, an Oberlin faculty person. Her name is Meredith Raimondo, Raimondo, Meredith Raimondo, and she is the vice president and dean of students at Oberlin College. So finally, the Gibson's Bakery, they're being driven out of business by this completely unfounded protest, they filed a lawsuit. Gibson's Bakery did, against Oberlin College, including against this one particular member of the administration, Meredith Raimondo, vice president and dean of students. So they filed the lawsuit in November of 2017. And so you might wonder, well, why is it really her fault? You know, these kids are in a protest. But she was encouraging them, helping them. In fact, she put out a statement just saying that she worked to ensure the students' freedom of speech was protected and that the student demonstrations were safe and lawful. I mean, she's agitating for, encouraging this protest built on a farce, built on a lie that somehow Gibson's was guilty of racial discrimination because they wouldn't let these 3 students shoplift wine. So Raimondo's right in the middle of it. She's stirring up. She's showing up at the protest outside the store, passing out flyers to people in the street saying, you know, don't shop here. It's really bad. They're racist, racial profiling, blah, 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 blah. So this Meredith Raimondo, she got, the college decided, they agreed ahead of time that any liability against her would be paid by Oberlin College. So they're protecting her. She's saying, look, I'm just trying to help them learn about free speech and peaceful demonstration, blah, blah. She also was involved on the activity on campus, not just permitting students to pass around. She was agitating and encouraging students to be part. She considers herself a social justice warrior, and she has this narrative. You know, you have a social justice warrior, you know, plaintiffs. You have these 3 young students, and they happen to be African American, and they probably were being racial profiled. They could have been racially profiled, and they shouldn't be picked on. And so she was willing to go with a narrative instead of the truth. So what happened was the jury finally came back and they awarded Gibson's Bakery $11 million. $11 million against Oberlin College. And there were awards to each particular plaintiff because there was, you know, a woman and her husband who were the owners of this bakery and other people who were owners there. It was $11 million verdict. And you know, basically the jury just said, you got to be kidding me. You know, what in the world were you thinking backing this student protest? And so there are a couple of important facts to understand about how this case went. So they present this case. There was actually, I'll tell you one other amazing fact, and I'm going to guess it swayed the jury. There was a professor at Oberlin. He was a professor of like music and theater or something. And he was actually retired, but he still was in the Oberlin community. His name is Roger Copeland, a retired Oberlin College professor. He wrote a letter to the editor in the local newspaper prior to the case being decided, while the case was pending, basically saying, Oberlin's nuts. What is wrong with them? Why are they defending this woman? There's no basis for this social justice warrior, racial profiling, racist accusation against this little bakery. You know, the other thing they did, by the way, that the Oberlin College originally ceased, they refused to do business with Gibson's Bakery. They had previously ordered a lot of their items to be sold or provided in the college cafeteria. They cut that out, and then they reinstated it, and then they cut it out again when the bakery filed a lawsuit. So this guy writes this column saying, this Oberlin professor saying, you know, Oberlin has no legs to stand on here. This is really, really crazy. But so this letter to the editor came to the attention of this Raimundo woman, who's the social justice warrior, you know, advocating and pushing these kids to continue their conduct. And so she sent a text to co-workers about that letter to the editor and her statement about this Oberlin professor. In this text that went to many coworkers and made its way to the jury, she texted the real F word, I won't say it on air, F him. I'd say unleash the students if I wasn't convinced this needs to be put behind us. She did not care what the facts were. And let me just say 2 or 3 other things about this quickly. Okay, so Raimundo is a social justice warrior, uninterested in facts. She's got black students who she's claiming were wronged, so no other facts matter. It doesn't matter if they really tried to steal. It doesn't matter if they engaged in a scuffle against Gibson's, against the people who are trying to stop them from running out from the store and stealing wine. The facts don't matter. All that mattered to her, social justice warrior and dean at Oberlin, was this social justice, you know, who are our victims, this perpetual outrage, this perpetual accusation of racism goes against anyone who won't do what they want. Where was the rest of the college administration? Where was the president of the college? Where were the board of trustees? Where are the other administrators? Where was the faculty? Where is anyone at Oberlin saying to her, what are you doing? What needs to happen is you got to pull these 3 kids in here and say, hey, we really hope you don't get sent to jail, but you don't get to steal wine, and there's nothing wrong with the store, Gibson's, having you arrested when you do things like that. This is what would happen in a sane world. In the insane world that is Oberlin College, and frankly, sadly, hundreds of colleges in this country, nobody said a word, apparently. At least you can find. No one said, hey, these kids are out of line, Dean Raimondo. I'm not sure you ought to be defending them. So anyway, so they got this judgment. And the last thing I'll tell you about this story is because tomorrow is the judgment. Tomorrow is the hearing. They're starting a hearing on punitive damages. The $11 million was actual damages. They are punitive damages. A jury can come back with 3 times as much as the original award. So they're starting a hearing tomorrow on the question of punitive damages. So you think that Oberlin would be appropriately muted and careful? No way. They sent a letter out to the campus. Oberlin sent it to their own campus, a statement by the school that said, we are disappointed with the verdict. We regret the jury did not agree with the clear evidence our team presented. She talked about Oberlin didn't really defame a business, and they never endorsed statements made by others, and the college can't be held liable for the independent actions of their students. Institutions of higher education are obligated to protect freedom of speech on their campuses and respect their students' decision to peacefully exercise their First Amendment rights. They're still defending themselves. They're still defending Raimundo. And so I hope that this letter from Oberlin, I'm going to guess it will, this letter from the Oberlin school, statement to their community, their donors, makes its way to the jury room when they're deciding punitive damages, because Oberlin still doesn't get it. Oberlin did not issue a statement in any way denouncing the students who engaged in an attempted shoplifting and then in a physical altercation with the store owners. They don't denounce that. They don't acknowledge that Raimundo got in the middle of it all, agitating, passing out flyers, encouraging these kids to act as though they had anything legitimate to complain about. They are digging in, defending the idea that this bakery deserved to be driven out of business because they dared defend themselves against shoplifters. And I'm telling you, folks, my theme for the day, I will come back with an update about that when we find out what the jury decides about punitive damages. And the Harvard allusion I made just a few weeks ago, we talked about the Harvard case about the professor who was being shunned by a black law professor at Harvard, being shunned by the students because he dared to take on representation, join the team representing one of the Me Too, Harvey Weinstein cases. He agreed to serve as a co-counsel, and these students, not having any comprehension what the law, the idea of representation in this country and the importance of having an attorney representing even the guilty, even the accused, they succeeded in driving him out. Harvard didn't fire him, but they removed him as dean of students or some dean of a house that he was head of, because the students are running this institution. The students are running Oberlin. The students are running Harvard.